Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act and in accordance with Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, all information attained is considered part of the public record. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Milligan, Councillor McDonald, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? None declared. Anyone for open forum? So we'll move on to presentations. Our first one is from the OPP Detachment Annual Report from Commander Inspector Dave Tuvell. And I guess Staff Sergeant Alaburn is not with us. Dave, okay, if you want to come forward, and welcome. And if once you're ready, if you press that silver button, a red light should come on, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Reeve Weiss. Councillors, our detachment board member, Councillor Milligan, and members of the public, thank you very much for having me here this evening to present the 2024 OPP annual report. And I always have to have a little disclaimer here because here we are now verging on October, we're into September, we're talking about the 2024 annual report. So for people that aren't aware, April 1st of last year, the former Police Service Act was replaced with the Community Safety Policing Act. And what it did is it required OPP, police services to report annual reports to their municipalities, and it laid out a framework. And so for that reason, a lot of the reporting pieces were delayed for 2024. So for the OPP, we now call our boards detachment boards, whereas municipal police services are called police service boards still. So our detachment board for this area was stood up in 2025, and the report for 2024 was approved by the OPP at the end of June of this year. So it wasn't until after June that we were able to disclose it to our detachment board. And since that time, I've been going around to each of our municipalities to give a high-level overview of the report without going into all the details because it has been received by the detachment board itself and presented to the communities. But an opportunity just to kind of share what our key priorities are, you know, kind of what we've been working on, and really more than anything is an opportunity for our municipalities, for yourselves, to ask me any questions you have about policing in your community, what we're looking to do in the coming year, and just anything in general. Nothing surprises me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also very proud to be here as the detachment commander for Lennox-Addington OPP. Our people do great work, great communities. We live in a great area. And I'm always looking to recruit people to the OPP and to pick this area for their first stop in their policing career. And on that note, we are hiring quite a few people in the OPP, and we have a lot of interest from local people from the Kingston, Greater Napanee, Loyalist, most recently Harold Smith. We have a recruit coming from there. So we have 5 more officers coming in the coming months, and they're all from this community. So it's great, great for us, great for them, great for our communities. So the annual report, I'll just kind of show you the front here because I'm not going to go into each page, but if you've received it, that it is this copy here, the 2024 annual report. And it's really, it's a report that highlights our 3 areas that we focus on, and that's our crime, our roadway, waterway, and trail safety, and our community well-being. And it highlights successes from the past year. This particular report, the 2024, is a midway report for the Lennox-Addington OPP Action Plan, which runs from 2022 to 2025, and provides some updates on the progress of that action plan. With having a detachment board in place now, the next detachment action plan is going to be a plan that is built through collaboration with our detachment board, who are representatives from each of our communities. So we're excited about building that plan and really hearing what our communities want us to focus on, as well as us sharing what we know about the community and what some of the vulnerabilities are in our communities and what we as an organization are working towards also. During the 2022 to 2025 action plan period, we as a detachment have done everything to increase our capacity for investigative excellence, and we've done this in 3 key areas. One is investing in the training of our people. We have 4 platoons that provide the frontline policing, which is what most people see on a daily basis. We do have our crime and our community street crimes unit and other support services such as our courts and community engagement officers and more. But our frontline officers are really the backbone for what we do. And I would say that probably 80% of our frontline officers have less than 4 years in the job. And this isn't just something that's unique to Lennox-Nattington OPP, it's across the country, but specifically speaking here in Ontario, we have only so much capacity to train our officers through the Ontario Police College. We, the OPP, have a provincial police academy where we do a lot of training too. So it is important for us, and it is a priority for us to get our people the training, whether it be a formal training or experiential learning through networking with other services, to get them the skills they need to be as effective as possible and to deliver effective policing in our communities. We've also enhanced the oversight of victim-based calls over the last year, and we are increasing public awareness of technology-based crimes. Those 3 areas, although they're only 3, there's a lot of tentacles to those, and through those efforts, they have a significant impact on what we do. Specific initiatives over the past couple years have included providing new temporary assignments to our young officers and opportunities for them to learn, providing experiential learning in the management of more complex investigations. We, in-house, we have opportunities for our young officers to get involved with our crime unit for short periods of time before returning to the road. They work with the various specialty services within our unit, and they also work with our neighboring detachments when there's opportunities to job shadow on some of the more serious crimes. And this just gives them a broader understanding of the work that goes into investigations and also the resources that are available to them as investigators. We've specifically concentrated our efforts in training them on major case investigations, human trafficking investigations, inter-partner violence investigations, and investigative interviewing techniques. We've supported, within the OPP, we have a new bureau called the Crime Prevention and Community Support Bureau, and this is a response to a culmination of several concurrent organizational initiatives. And our detachment supports this bureau and its investigations through a new position, which is an enhancement to our current operations, which is funded by the province, and it's a detachment abuse issues investigator. And what this officer does is provides oversight to all high-level abuse incidents where there's victims of crime. We support that victim in all ways, including through the judicial process. So also provides daily oversight of all calls that have any victim-based element to it to make sure that all of our protocols and policies are adhered to and that we make proper notifications to the various social service groups in our communities. We've put more resources towards engaging with vulnerable community groups to educate individuals and organizations about several types of fraud, how they work, and how to prevent them. We found over this action plan period that our frauds were increasing, and it's not, again, specific to Lennox-Nattington, it's just in general that police are finding that there are more victims to fraud because frauds are no longer the roofing company that comes and you pay them up front and they don't return. There's a lot of internet-based frauds now and telephone-based frauds, and our most vulnerable people in our communities are becoming victimized, and they are very difficult to solve, and often our victims are left short for whatever they may have lost, and in a lot of cases it's several thousands of dollars. So really our big focus has been on the prevention piece, and it's not only just educating those people themselves who may become victims, but it's also bringing in their support, the families and the different groups that the elder would associate with, who can be an oversight also and provide the guidance and watch over, just to make sure that that these people aren't falling victim. And finally, in the area of our investigative excellence, we've invested as an organization quite a bit of money and effort into our frontline mobile technology. All of our cars now have in-car cameras, so we are able to capture out the front of our cruisers, the back of our cruisers, and video everything inside of our cruisers. All of our officers now have body-worn cameras, which there's policy surrounding those, and all interactions, we have our interactions being recorded, and all this stuff goes up onto a cloud drive for storage. All of our cruisers have mobile workstations, and really now that is the officer's office. And what that does is it reduces the amount of time that they need to spend in the office and keeps them on the road, keeps them out in the public, invisible. They've all got personal cell phones now in the last year and a half, and those cell phones are tethered to all the technology. So when they're at an incident and they capture anything on the in-car camera, body-worn camera, they manage that and manage it into cloud and embed it into the investigations, all through the use of their cell phone now. Also capable of taking audio statements, video statements from persons, where years ago we would have to ask people to come to the detachment in order to be able to capture that best evidence through video. It's all now done in the comfort of the location or where it suits those individuals. We also have automated license plate recognition in all of our vehicles, with the ability now to capture license plates, whether they come towards the cruiser or past the cruiser, and we can capture several license plates and gather that information per second. And that gives us information about people driving without licenses, suspended drivers, wanted persons, expired license tags, or any other significant event that provincially we deem important to put on the system for a period of time, such as Amber Alerts and that will become active, that if any one of those cars was to drive by our cruisers, it would alert the officers immediately. And finally, over the last year, we've transitioned to a modern, encrypted, and innovative radio system. It's interministerial. They will be utilized by 8 Ontario ministries, allowing more than 38,000 frontline emergency responders to communicate. It will allow interoperability, and all radios have GPS technology, which for the OPP is significant as it improves officer safety through the ability to respond to an officer in an emergent situation. Probably for us, one of the things we're looking forward to most, and this will, although our officers have the radios, I believe next month they'll be going full encryption, which is significant for us in order to encrypt our transmissions. On our roadways, waterways, and trails, we focus on engagement and education, emphasizing the need for every operator, passenger, and recreational user to be responsible for eliminating risks to prevent serious injury and death. We have engaged with communities, stakeholders, and our regional traffic teams to address specific issues. And during this past year and a half, we've committed a full-time marine program that runs between May to September. Our operators are from Lennox and Addington. They're train operators, and they're on our waterways, in addition to our regional team who are also on our waterways. Our operators alone in Lennox and Addington in 2024 engaged over 1,300 operators of vessels on our waterways. And we focused on things like the proper use of and compliance for wearing life preservers, which we know provincially we have an issue with drownings, and nearly in all cases they would have been prevented had the proper safety gear been worn. Our officers also remain steadfast in their commitment to keeping our roads safe. Impaired driving enforcement in 2024 increased by 20% over what it was in 2023. Our speed enforcement increased by 32%. Our seatbelt enforcement doubled in 2023 with an increased focus on proper restraints. We found a number of our fatalities over the previous year to 2 years prior to that, 2021, 22, and into 23. There was a lot of ejections from vehicles, people not wearing seatbelts, and distracted in driving enforcement, which is big for us. We tripled that enforcement in 2024 over previous years, and we continue to focus on that in 2025. Our fatal motor vehicle collisions were reduced, I'm pleased to report that year-to-date fatalities are 0. Personal injury collisions and property damage collisions have been reduced a further 14% year-to-date 2025 versus where they were this time last year. We also formed a traffic alliance with our neighboring detachments, Frontenac, Prince Edward County, Quinte West, Center Hastings, and Leeds. What this does is it increases our visibility and capacity to effectively respond to road safety concerns. And this is an enhancement to everyday policing. So our officers who are on the road are doing those jobs, but we also have this alliance now that brings officers in from each of the detachments, and we focus on things like distracted driving, our seatbelt compliance, and any other areas where our communities have reported some risk to public for speeding or any other poor driving habits. This team will focus on that. And again, it's an enhancement to what our everyday operations currently are. And we work closely with our regional team. So we have our regional traffic team. There's a regional team positioned in Leeds. There's also a regional team positioned, half the team is out of the Odessa office, the other half is in the Quinte West office. But they're not assigned to those attachments, that's just their location and where our regional team, again, it's a provincial team deployed regionally, that's where they're located, and they support all of our traffic needs. We also have the SAVE team, which stands for the Snowmobile, All-Terrain, Vessel Enforcement Team. So this is the team where we're on our trails and our waterways. So again, they're another enhancement to the Lennox and Addington resources, and you'll often see them out on the trails on the ATVs and on our waterways. In community well-being, over the last period, we focused on a sustained community engagement model, recognizing that community engagement and collaboration is a cornerstone for success when we have common approaches and best practices. In 2024, our detachment continued to expand the capacity to meet the needs of the most vulnerable in our community through an integrated mobile crisis response team. We call that MCERT, MCRT. And through provincial grant funding, this partnership with our local social services has increased from 2 MCERT workers to 3 MCERT workers who support officers by attending calls involving individuals experiencing mental health crisis. Our MCERT the MCERT office is located strategically in our building. It's the last office before you go out the back door to get in a cruiser, and we do this for a reason. When our officers are on the road and they have a call, a mental health call, where we can use MCERT services, an officer will usually stop by and pick up this member, or the officer responding to the call, or if they're in the detachment, will grab them on the way out. And they are a second to us, and they're responding to the crises with police. And the nice thing about this is it's no longer police responding to a non-police call. These are often social service calls, and we as the police, being the front line, get the calls. In the old days, not that old, not that long ago, we had no support, and we relied on our officers to go and to support these people and know what resources are available to them in the community, and hopefully plug them into those resources in a timely manner. And that often in reality just didn't happen. We would probably mitigate the situation and get them to some help in that moment, and hopefully things were fine for the evening. But now through the work of the MCERT office, I always like to say officers, the MCERT employees who work for social services, who are embedded in our detachment, they respond with us, and they're the ones that take the lead on the call. And they're the ones that know what social services and what support groups are available to these vulnerable persons in our community. And they get them the help in a timely manner. They get them the help when those people need it most and when they're most willing to accept it. And that has been huge for us. And I say us in that it's been so successful in Lennox and Addington, but us for the OPP in general, because the MCERT is a recognized program across our province, and it's a model that we're building on. And so we're so happy that in the last couple months, we've put a 3rd member into that MCERT office, and we provide coverage there 7 days a week and into the evening. So it's a great asset. In 2024, the MCERT people received more than 4,000 service contacts. They completed more than 1,200 follow-up interactions supporting individuals and exchanged more than 2,500 calls or texts with members from our community who just want to reach out and speak to someone. Also, our OPP Auxiliary Unit provided more than 3,000 hours, volunteer hours in 2024 and attended 58 events. And in the last year, we also recognized 3 of those auxiliary members for exceeding 2,500 volunteer hours in their tenure as auxiliary people. And these 3 individuals are people who are retired, had former careers, want to give back to the community, and have been a big part of why our auxiliary program has been so successful. We also have worked closely with our municipalities, and the one thing we're really working on is our CamSafe program, which is a municipality program. We're encouraging our municipalities to get on board. The information is available online, CAM Safe, so CAM Safe, and what that is, it's an opportunity for our community to be players in community safety, and if they have cameras on their houses, doorbell cameras, stuff, to register those cameras with CAM Safe. It's managed by the municipalities. We have, as police, have no access to it other than to know where cameras are, and then we reach out to those people. And where this has proven beneficial in a few of our communities over the past year is when crime has happened and we're looking to get evidence, and we can then quickly go on to this network and find out who may have cameras, and then it provides us contacts to reach out to them and ask them if they can have a look at their video doorbell cam or any other camera. And what that does is it saves police resource time, allows us to quickly gather evidence, and it's also a crime prevention measure, similar to neighborhood watch or anything else. When this is in our community and our community stands behind this, it really does work to enhance that public safety piece. We've also worked closely with Greater Napanee. About a year and a half ago, I received a call that there was a building that they were tearing down downtown, and that would be the last of the existing CCTV network in the community, and just wanted me to be made aware that it was coming down. And so I asked for a quick hold on that thought, because really it's kind of contrary to where we are going in policing and just in general in society. Is we need that technology and we need to leverage it. So we had a grant come through, and we partnered with Greater Napanee, and we were able to get provincial funding for a grant, and Napanee met it in kind, to expand what was there and build quite an impressive closed-circuit television network now in the Greater Napanee area with AI technology. And we've used that for a few things. We had a crime that occurred in Napanee, and we had a description of a truck with a lift kit and stickers on the back window, and we were able to enter that information with the time period, and through AI it scanned all the stored video, and we're able to capture photos of similar vehicles, and we're able to narrow down the vehicle and solve that crime. We also used it to locate a missing person. We had a description of the individual, the time period, and we're able to identify an area of a block where this person was seen and didn't come out of and wasn't captured on cameras, and we're able to locate this individual. And it was a vulnerable individual. So some great success there, and just examples of how our detachments working with our communities to really build a partnership for community safety. And again, it's just not all about the police, it's about working together. Some statistics you'll see in the annual report, I'll just highlight a few, that in 2024, we received 29,901 calls for service, and 11,001 of those calls were deemed immediate police response, which they classify as imminent public safety or danger calls. So that was 11,000 of the 29,000. Our violent crime calls in 2024 were up from 2023. By 64 calls, and a big part of that was assaults. And we did look at that data, and that data comes from a few types of calls. One is our interpartner violence calls, so we formally refer to those as domestic violence. And also some of the other assaults were from just basic disagreements between two individuals, or largely mental health calls. where an individual with mental health was involved and an assault occurred, and so it was classified. So that drove our violent calls up predominantly, but at the same time we saw a reduction in sexual assault calls, which was a good thing, because we had put efforts towards, especially in our high schools, with regards to sexual assaults and trying to educate and prevent those from occurring. Our property crime calls in 2024 were down over the previous years, or previous year in 2023, and the greatest reduction was in our thefts, and we're quite pleased to see that it was in our frauds, where we have put a fair bit of effort forth. Impaired driving charges were up in 2024. We had 281 charges versus 241 in 2023. I can tell you that impaired driving is a focus of ours. We have an expectation of our officers to be conducting ride checks on a regular basis, just to make sure that our roads are safe. Often the impaired charges we get are a result of someone already wrapped around a tree or in a ditch, and that's not a good thing. We do have legislative authority to be conducting mandatory alcohol screening. We call that MAS, M-A-S. And what that does is allows officers to request a roadside sample of drivers, even if it's not a ride program. So our officers, in a lot of cases now, if they're stopping vehicles for speeding, whatever, they will ask immediately for a roadside sample of an operator's breath, just to ensure compliance. The other thing is we have various levels of driver's license, and some of those classes do not allow any alcohol in the system at all. So that's our way of making sure people are adhering to those restrictions. And finally, our staffing. We have, coming in 2026, an enhancement of 4 officers for Lennox and Addington. And so this will be on top of our existing complement. And provincially, there is what's called a service delivery model, and it's something the provincial government and the OPP have worked on to establish what the new, or what numbers are required to effectively police a community. And with that, we do have an enhancement coming. I don't have the exact numbers, but I do know that in 2026, to start anyhow, we have 4 more officers being added to our complement, which is great. And in 2025, to the latter part of 2024, the one thing I'm most happy as a detachment commander, well, I wouldn't say most because there's a lot of great things, but I'm very, very pleased that we have a detachment board up and running, and they have been so supportive of us. And with that comes a lot of great things. One, I talked about the grant that came through, which we're able to use for a public safety initiative, and that was a one-time grant for Eastern Ontario for one detachment who doesn't have a detachment board, that the government will give that funding. But there are a number of grants that come across my desk which I'm never privy to because I don't have a detachment board, and that's who the grants are meant for. So things like our festive ride grants, we're now getting provincial funding for that, and that allows us to put more officers on the road in addition to our existing complement to a certain amount of funding. So we'll often use those in the festive season, and we'll put out overtime for a team of officers to work a number of different events targeting the impaired driving, the ride. And again, that's through grant funding, and there's a number of public safety grants that do come through, which we can now capitalize on having the detachment board in place. So that's great. I also do believe it's important that we as a service are held accountable to our communities, and I'm happy that we have the detachment board because it's good to be held accountable, but I love sharing the work that we do too, and having that detachment board available to us, it's been really nice. Most recently, with our chair, Bob Norrie, councillor in Greater Napanee, him and I attended the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards in London about 2, maybe 3 months ago now, and we had an opportunity to meet a number of other police service boards and municipalities and just hear the work that's being done there and how boards are working closely and the benefits of it. And so it was a great thing, very promising. And as you know, Councillor Milligan's on our board too, and so In this past year, one thing I'm trying to do is at the beginning of each board meeting is introduce an element of our services. Our first meeting, we had our detective sergeant from our community street crime unit come in and speak to the work that they do. It's a unit that the public may not necessarily know that's fully active every day, and they're plainclothes officers who gather intelligence and they target our street crime, in particular our drugs and property crime. In the past couple of months, they've taken a large quantity of fentanyl off our streets, and that's in all communities here in Lennox and Addington. And they've got a great success rate with solving property crimes too when they occur and through the intelligence that they get. They work closely with officers in Frontenac, Center Hastings, Prince Edward County, Quinte West. So while we have 5, they collaborate with those other officers from the other detachments and will often cross borders to assist investigations. So they were introduced to our board, and at our last board meeting, we had our community engagement officer, Constable Martin Curran, and his role is focusing primarily on our community, being out there. He's the outreach, he's in our schools, and he works, his desk is located in the same office as our MCERT, and they work very closely together to liaise and just make sure that there's a tether between our social services and the work we do. So we introduced them to our detachment board at the last meeting too. So we will continue to do that at our next meeting and meetings to come as we educate our board on who we are and the great work that we do. And with that, Reeve Weiss, if there's any questions of yourself or council, I'm very happy to make myself available to answer them.
Thanks very much, Dave. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Lalande.
Just wondering if I could have your email address. I'd like to ask you a question, but I don't want to take any more time up this.
Yes, well, it's very simple. It is david.tuvell, T-O-V as in Victor, E-L-L, at opp.ca.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Hi, welcome. I just have a question in regards to kind of our municipality, and can you tell us what are the most common safety or crime concerns we might have in our catchment area? Is that possible?
Yeah, through you, Reeve Weiss. Good question, and I had asked that of our operations manager today because I just wanted to be prepared for that. So really, in general, it's the same stuff that drives business in other communities, but to a lesser degree. We do get a lot of traffic stuff in this area, though. Traffic complaints from citizens, and we do a fair bit of traffic enforcement on these back roads. But as far as other calls, mental health calls, and property crimes, they're much less just because of the population. But if you in ratio, I would say it's pretty much equal to what we're doing in the other communities within Lennox and Addington. There's nothing in particular that jumps out, but again, traffic is a big piece of what we do here.
I was just wondering, you mentioned a Constable Curran goes to the schools. Have you been visiting our local schools? We have about 3 or 4 in this area.
Yeah, thank you. I will be honest, I don't know what schools, but I will report back to this council on that through Constable Curran and provide you that information. I know he's all throughout. Actually, most recently, they were reading books at Odessa to kids there. I know they did a big charity, 24-hour charity race to help the Breakfast Club in the Napanee High School. And just last week, he was up in Addington Highlands. To speak specific to anything he's done recently in the schools here, I highly suspect he has. I just don't have the information, but I definitely will report that back to council.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Fenwick.
Just a quick one here. First of all, this report's amazing. And I'm listening to you speak, and I mean, it's fascinating. You do such a great job of portraying all this, and it's so easy to understand. So thank you for, I'm sure this isn't easy to put together. Just a quick one. I have had people inquire, and it's just general conversation, that they've noticed a bit of a reduction in the ride programs. I had somebody say to me the other day, I haven't been through one in 2 years. Now, it could be just the way it is, but I did agree and say, actually, now that I think about it, it has been some time. Have we noted, has there been a bit of a reduction in that for a reason that we found a better way of enforcement and finding these folks? Or is it just because we're just jumping it around? I mean, anything like that? Is that truth to that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fenwick, for those words. And you are right. Our ride programs are down 36% over where they were this time last year. And I attribute part of that to the mandatory alcohol screening and the fact that our officers are making that part of their roadside stops. But having said that, Staff Sergeant Al Byrne, who oversees operations, just renewed the expectations for us to be in key areas, and that was about a month ago. So I suspect we'll see those numbers increasing. So along with our individual mandatory alcohol screening, the ride itself will increase. And as the detached commander, my officers know that ride is good. I'm in favor of ride, but I'm more in favor of mandatory alcohol screening at a ride. So where the traditional rides where you would show up and we attempt to detect odor of alcohol or through talking to the driver. That's one way to do ride, but now with the new legislation, my officers are encouraged that everyone comes through ride is providing a breath sample. And so that's something too that the community will find is new. So really what it does is the legislation takes the guesswork out of policing any longer. And it allows us now to just request a sample, whether we detect alcohol on the breath or slurred speech or any other signs of impairment. It's a quick 10-second blow into a roadside instrument, and we get a reading, a very accurate reading too at that. So, so when we talk about rides, really ride has evolved to that, and which is great. But you're correct in your assumption that our rides are down over where they were this time last year. But again, doesn't mean that our officers aren't focused on it. It's just in a different way. But yeah, the standard seeing 4 or 5 officers, it's been a little less than it was last year.
Anyone else? I have a couple of things, Dave. The 401 isn't in Stone Mills, but a lot of us, not me, but a lot of our citizens commute on the 401. And it may be just a perception. It seems like there are more crashes involving transport trucks, even in broad daylight. Is that just anecdotal and inaccurate, or do you think that that is something that's increased? And I just want your thoughts on what's causing that.
Statistically, I'm always hating to say this because you're supposed to knock on wood, but our collisions are down on the 401. We do have a number of collisions that are attributed to commercial motor vehicles, though, and where commercial motor vehicles are involved. And a lot of the time, it's not the speeds necessarily that are causing the collisions, it's the poor driving behaviors of the motorist that are causing them. So improper lane changes, and when I say improper, it's people who fail to look and they just change lanes. It's distracted driving, those sort of things. But to say specifically that commercial motor vehicles are a big cause, they're involved in, and I wish I had the percentage here because it is available to me, but they are involved in a number of collisions. But like I say, I think it's because most of the time it's a queue collision where we've had something on the highway construction, a queue starts to build up, and then the transport trucks last minute realize it's there for whatever reason and can't slow down, and they end up crashing and people are crashing into them. But statistically, our collisions are down. We've had 0 fatalities. We are focused on distracted driving. Some of our numbers are alarming when we're out on the highway. It's nothing for us if we start at 9 in the morning to have 45, 50 distracted driving charges by noon hour. And we focus a big part of that on our truck drivers. And so again, it's not all about just the truck drivers, but it's pretty alarming when you see the size of those vessels or vehicles out there, and to see what is distracting them in their cabs. So, but again, it's not that of those 45 or 50, they're mostly truck drivers. It's all over the map, but it is particularly alarming when you're driving something that big and you're not paying attention.
Definitely, thank you. Something else I was wondering about was you mentioned fraud is down, which is great. What do the police do about things like phone fraud and scams? I had a call last night. Apparently, I've won $4.1 million from the Publishers Clearinghouse. Yes, yeah. I'll be stepping down shortly. But you know the kind of nonsense that goes on, and someone I know was swindled out of $5,000. Luckily, the bank restored it to her account. But an intelligent person, you know, what do the police do in these cases of phone scams?
I wish there was an easy answer to that. We do have more resources available to us. It's not an easy thing, especially when the originators are out of jurisdiction. We do have now, and I think it's been stood up for maybe 7 years now, a serious fraud unit. It's centrally located, was in the Toronto area, and OPP manage it, but it's a joint project, so larger services are also part of it. So all major police services are contributing investigators to the serious fraud unit. So when we come across something like you're talking about, we would often refer that to the serious fraud unit, who are already likely investigating that stream of fraud, and they just use your information to further add to that case to try to build the case or to gather evidence to figure out where it's coming from. A lot of this stuff, I wouldn't say a lot, but there's a portion of it which is obviously overseas. So that's where this serious fraud unit and our counterparts there have those connections globally. But for the everyday officer to arrive and to learn that someone was scammed out of $10,000, it's a very difficult investigation, and that's where they really do rely on the resources, which is why it's important for us to put our efforts towards prevention. And so this doesn't happen, because the reality is, once it's happened, it's very difficult to reverse. And you know, depending on banks or whoever else can support you, but so prevention's big. And so when we talk about, you know, and you said it, that you would get it, and it almost sounds too real. So, you know, you would hope that most people would appreciate that and for what it is and hang up. But the vulnerable persons are people whose faculties maybe aren't as sharp as they used to be, and those are the people that for every 20 calls, if they can find one, and next thing you know, that person's savings are gone, and it could be someone that's suffering from some element of dementia, or who has a family who really takes care of their finances, who aren't available to them on that call. So that's where we're really trying to reach out to those groups, and through our various, you know, our seniors' homes who we're outreaching to, and we're in those homes talking. And I know, again, we were up in Addington Highlands last week doing this very thing, and we're working with them to educate the families so that they're more aware that this is happening, and they can consider how to safeguard their elders and to prevent it from happening. And in some cases, they're restricting access to bank accounts for their own parents, just so that if this happens, that the risk is mitigated. So, but those are all really the strategies we're working on. We do have more resources available to us, but the officer arriving on a doorstep for that call where someone's lost $10,000 is a very difficult moment.
Thank you. Wenda, you had something?
Yes, I just wanted to add to your conversation. So I was frauded out of $2,500 about a year ago on the phone and through text. And the bank referred me to this group, the OPP group. And the gentleman that I spoke to was amazing. I didn't get my money back, but he certainly gave me some tools going forward. Simple things like reduce the amount of money that can be taken out of your account to $1,000, because it doesn't get flagged over $3,000. I think it gets flagged. What was a couple of other things? Eliminate my international e-transfer. And the other one was be very careful when you're conversing with these people, not to give them too much information, because you can ultimately figure it out. And I could have figured it out if I was smarter about it. So my children haven't yet taken away my bank card, but the information was extremely helpful. And I really enjoyed the experience of speaking with this individual. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Lalonde. Just one last thing I'll share. We were in Addington Highlands about a year ago speaking to a seniors group at a Lions Club, and it was a great turnout. We learned something, and we've added it to our education piece. And it was a person there who had a seasonal cottage, and the mail accumulated, and the mail was stolen, and whoever used all the information gathered through the various pieces of mail to learn more about the identity, and we're then able to access that individual's account and defraud them of money. So just things like that, and leaving your mailbox unkept, and people being able to take your mail and quickly learn more about you. So just that was interesting for us, and it just makes so much sense, but just goes to show how, you know, anybody really can be victimized in this, and we're a trusting society, and but when you leave little gaps like that, or say too much in a text, they can quickly, and sometimes it's only one piece of information that they have left, and that's what they're trying to get out of you through text and stuff. You don't know what they may already know about you. So, you know, these are things that we do in our talks, and just gets people thinking, and hopefully through that we can prevent this from happening.
That's the key. I think we could go on, Dave, 'cause it's very interesting, and I thank you very much for your presentation. It's great to see how much more community interaction there is with the police. When I grew up, you didn't want to get involved with the police. You know, they were off there somewhere. You know the kind of environment that I'm talking about from 50 or 60 years ago. It's so much better now, and the communication that's happening can only improve things, because that's the key, right? So I thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. And one last little plug, and I know it's not, it's Loyalist Township, but it's Leamington Addington, and that's this Saturday. We have the OPP Golden Helmets coming to our community, and it's going to be in Bath. I think it starts around 11 o'clock. But it was something that, as detached commander, I pushed for the OPP. They only go to so many places in their calendar for the year. They're a team dedicated to putting on the show. And when we got our detachment board in place, and I promoted how this would be a great way to bring our community out and kind of see OPP in a different light, and just see what we have in celebrating our organization. So that is coming this Saturday to Leamington Addington. And also for this council, we are open to being involved in anything with regards to the community. I know it should be incumbent upon us too to inject ourselves in community stuff, but often we do look for our communities to reach out to us and just say that we'd love to have you here, and we would never turn an opportunity down. So as much as we'll work hard to get into your community, also encouraging whether it be this council or anybody listening that has something that would love to see the OPP presence. And again, to your point about building that community trust and that relationship between community and police is so important.
Thanks very much, Dave. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Tubble's report from Councillor Lalonde and Councillor Fenwick? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And our next presentation is of KPMG for the 2024 financial audit. So Dave, you were doing 2024. Our audit is from 2024 as well, so don't feel bad. Welcome, Laurie. You know the drill with the microphone there, so once you're ready to go, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. That's a tough act to follow. That was really interesting. I was quite engaged as well. Hopefully, I can keep your same attention as we talk about the numbers and the audit, but I'll do my best. No guarantees. So before you here tonight, I'm here to speak to the 2024 financial statements along with the results of our audit. I won't go through each of the attachments in a super amount of detail, but certainly touch on the highlights that I think are likely most meaningful to you. And certainly, as always, if you have any questions, happy to take those as well, either throughout the presentation or save them until the end. So where we are today with respect to the audit, I don't know who's driving the screen, but if we go to page number 5 of our report, that's where we will share with you our audit status. So we are essentially complete, and I know there was lots of conversation around the timeliness of our 2023 audit. Pleased to say we are well ahead of that last year. And also pleased to say that if you've had the opportunity to read through the report, it's actually a very quiet report, which means there's not a lot of findings, which I think from your perspective is another great achievement for fiscal 2024. So, assuming council does accept and approve the financial statements, we will be in a position to release them in final later this week, as our audit is essentially complete, save for these conversations. So the next slide gets us into a little bit of the numbers. So what I've done is, as always, pulled together the key pieces of the financial statements themselves and included them as part of our report. So the first piece that you'll see before you is what we call the statement of financial position, otherwise known as the balance sheet. So it highlights all of the assets and all of the liabilities at the close of business, being December 31. I won't go through each of the items in detail on the right-hand side, but I've tried to pull out some of the more significant variances in terms of the year-over-year change, but I will point out some of them as we go through. So if you start at the top of the house, you'll see in terms of cash in the bank, again, significantly healthy position at the end of the year, just over 12.7 million, fairly comparative to the previous year, and there is a separate statement in the notes to the financial statements that will give you more detail if you are interested. One of the things that certainly cropped up through the course of 2024 that I don't think is very new news to this group is the Goodyear permit that was issued in 2024. That was a large number, over $500,000. So that's coming up in a few parts if you've seen our report. That wasn't yet in the bank at the end of December 31, so it is sitting in your receivables, which is why your receivables are so high. So certainly not a collection risk. It's that one-time item that was sitting there at the end of December. The other piece that you'll notice as part of your financial liabilities, it is in the books for 2024, but you have to actually earn it to record revenue. So when you don't earn the revenue, it needs to sit on the balance sheet, and that's why you'll see a new financial statement line item this year called deferred revenue. So that will be taken into income in the future years once the performance obligations have been achieved. So if you look at the deferred revenue that's sitting there at $430,000, that's exactly what I'm referring to in that regard. You will notice taxes receivables have increased a little bit year over year. That's kind of an interesting one to me as we are closing out more and more 2024 audits. I would generally say a couple of things in there. It depends whether or not there are any supplementaries issued right before the end of the year that wouldn't necessarily be collected, but certainly keeping an eye on that one more broadly in the sector, because I do think there's a correlation of increased collection risk and the economic environment. And so the inability of some taxpayers to potentially pay as quickly as they had in the past. So again, certainly not highlighting any area of concern, but certainly something we're seeing more broadly that is a consistent trend. Another item in your financial liabilities that you might have recalled last year was the new year, or the first year of adoption of what we call asset retirement obligations. It's a large number, sitting just over $11 million again this year. So that's a combination of what we used to call landfill accounting liabilities, along with the exercise that was undertaken last year to identify anything in buildings like asbestos that would need to be remediated at some point in the future. That's not a one and done, so that continues to be reevaluated each and every year, which is why you see it slightly different compared to the previous year. So that's now an annual financial reporting exercise that will be trued up based on anything new that was identified through the course of the year or any changes in those assumptions. However, when we look at the net financial assets, that's your total financial assets less your total financial liabilities. It has increased year over year by about $500,000, which I would say for a municipality such as yourself, that is a healthy result. So that's a great sign, meaning you have increased your assets on a net basis year over year. Also, below the line, that's where you will show your non-financial assets. So that's where your large amount sits related to investments that the municipality has made in your tangible capital assets, so things like roads and buildings. In year, you will see on the right-hand side, there were total additions of over $3 million. And then, of course, netted off of that in the given year is your annual charge for amortization based on the estimated useful lives of those assets. So at the end of the year, you'll see on a net book value basis, which is cost less accumulated amortization, sitting at about $42 million. You will also notice I'm actually talking a lot more about this page than what I thought I would, so I apologize, but there's some good stuff in here with some big change. So hopefully I'm answering some questions along the way. So the other component of your non-financial assets is your inventories, and that's certainly been a topic of conversation, I would say, with the team over the course of the last few years. You can see a fairly dramatic change year over year, $1 million in the previous year, and just over 400,000 in 2024. So historically, that hadn't necessarily been formally evaluated. And so based on our recommendation, the team did go out, and certainly the team will be able to speak to this much more clearly than I will, but certainly at a high level, that did have some specialized expertise to come up with a number of what that inventory actually is at the end of December. So that change year over year has been a charge on your income statement, which is a reduction of your in-year reported surplus, and that will be something that the team will continue to reevaluate each and every year to make sure that remains accurate. So those are the highlights of your balance sheet. You will see accumulated surplus at the bottom, which is a summary of your total assets minus your total liabilities. That's where something that is likely of interest to you, which is your reserve and your reserve fund sit. And we will see those on a few subsequent slides, so in a few minutes. Next slide, again, not a lot of detail. We spend a lot of time on numbers, again, putting numbers in a graphic sort of way. Because tangible capital assets are such a large proportion of your overall balance sheet, this just gives you a little bit of information in terms of the types of assets that the organization has recorded on the books. The next couple of slides we can review in tandem. It's always nice to sort of do a bit of a trending analysis, so that's what we've done over the course of the last 5 years. As I said earlier, your reserve and reserve funds are a component of your accumulated surplus. And so these are the reserves, if you will, or the storage banks of funds that can be used for future items at council's discretion. And so you can certainly see 2024 had an increase to your reserve and reserve funds. And I always get the question, how much should that number be? And again, it really needs to marry up with some of your long-term, more strategic planning and thinking. And again, there's no right size. But I would say for your size and scale of an operation here, I would say you're certainly in line with a number of your peer organizations. That takes me to my next slide, which is one of the KPIs that the province does look at when they are looking at your reserve and reserve funds. It is antiquated. It has not changed for a very long time. However, the same KPI is used for all municipalities in Ontario. They would suggest when they're reviewing the annual financial statements of municipalities, anything in excess of 20% would be considered green. You can certainly see you've been well north of that KPI for at least the last 5 years, and I dare say longer, much longer than that. So again, certainly from a health perspective, would give you another check mark on that one. You will see a little bit of a negative trend on this one that I alluded to in your statement of operations. So just as a reminder, your tax arrears, otherwise known as your taxes receivable, when you take a look at that balance that has not yet been paid but accrued on the financial statements and take it as a percentage of your current levy, and your levy would include your portion and the upper tier portion and the education, it's everything all in. The province, when they look at this KPI, they would suggest anything less than 10% would be considered green. You're still within that range, but you can see a fairly heavy increase in 2024. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like, as I said earlier, in 2025, and hopefully seeing that start to come down again a little bit. On the next page, I've given you a snapshot of your statement of operations, which is the statement that highlights all of the in-year revenue and expenses. And it does give you some indication relative to budget as well. If we jump just to the bottom line, you can see there has been a consistent reported annual surplus in the year, albeit a little bit less than the previous year and certainly less than budget. I'll tell you right out of the gate, the change to the inventory you saw on the balance sheet, which was $500,000, that's part of the change this year. So the other side goes to your income statement, which you will see an increased transportation expense. That's where that sits. And then certainly in terms of revenue, again, you'll see some commentary on the right-hand side in terms of some of the variances on the more significant items from a revenue perspective. I will say, generally speaking, government grants is an interesting one to try to explain. They are volatile in the sense that they can vary significantly year over year, depending on the level of capital funding that you have. So that, in my view, is one of the inherent shortfalls of municipal financial statements, but that's just the way it is, and it needs to be earned. So you can see that will certainly vary year over year. Your taxation revenue, very close to budget, which would be what the expectation would be. The user charges, that's where we see the good year piece crop up in terms of the variance year over year. And then the other road services, you can see that that is up as well, and the commentary on the right for the work that you do for the upper tier. Those are the highlights of the income statement. The next page, the municipal statements require you to show on the face the expenses by department. This slide here on the screen is able to show you the types of expenses that you incur. So for example, materials and services, salaries, wages, and benefits, and so on. If we were to compare this graph to the previous year, I would say not a lot of change. Other than generally speaking, I do think we're continuing to see the inflationary pressures and certainly cost escalations across the board. We'll skip through a couple of slides and take you through our risk assessment summary, which is on page number 14. I would say nothing uniquely different from our perspective for fiscal 2024. Unlike 23, there was actually not a lot of significant change in 2024. Generally speaking, municipal audits, including your own, would be what we would call a low-risk audit. However, if we flip to the next slide, you would have heard me say this last year as well on page number 15, certainly not relative to a risk assessment that we've specifically done based on your processes, systems, and controls, but any financial statement audit in Canada requires us to presume specific risks of fraud, specifically related to management's ability to override controls. So again, not meant to be a red flag. It's been here for a long, long time. We're required to do this work that you'll see on the page here. And really the ultimate conclusion is there's nothing to bring to your attention, but rest assured we've done the work required. I will take you to page number 17, other financial reporting matters. I thought it would be wise as we were completing the audit for 2024 to give you a little bit of preview for 2025. We've done the same with the management team. Certainly, our audit window does stay open up until today's date, recognizing the subsequent event period. That is part of a financial reporting component. And certainly looking at the minutes that the council meetings did include right up until today's date, we did become aware of changes to employee future benefits that were approved earlier this year. That approval will impact the reported employee future benefits liability, so that will require some work on the part of an actuary to come up with a change in estimate based on those changes in information. So stay tuned for that one, and the team is certainly well aware, and that will happen in due course in preparation for the upcoming audit. Next slide just is a comprehensive slide. Again, without touching on each of these items, I'm required to share with you on the left-hand side, to the extent any of these items do exist, I'm required to share those with you. Pleased to say you can see in terms of findings, no matters to report. In terms of the quality of the books and records, I know, Anita, you're listening to this report. Again, the team was exceptionally well prepared for our arrival, full cooperation. You will see there is one uncorrected audit misstatement, which is really the cutoff of certain accruals, which I would say exists in a lot of audits, making sure that all the books and records are complete with respect to anything from an expense point of view that was incurred, but not yet paid or not even yet invoiced, which is often not on the part of the finance staff. So you will see that in the report relative to materiality, certainly not even close to materiality, so there is no impact on our audit report, and those items will be cleaned up in the books in fiscal 2025. Skipping along on page 21, I'm also required to share with you, to the extent I believe there's any significant deficiencies in internal controls. I say here, absolutely not. The team has worked really hard to make sure that they maintain a good system of internal controls over financial reporting. I'm using my words carefully because I've issued a few reports in the last couple of weeks for municipalities where I've made that determination. So I think it's important to say the hard work that the team does do to make sure that they maintain the integrity of the financial records. We are required as your independent auditor to remain independent, so we've not provided any non-audit services through the course of the year that might be thought to encroach on our independence that I must reconfirm to you at least once annually. Promise I'm almost done. This takes us to the final piece, which is on the screen. Starting on page number 25 is our draft audit report. It is also included in the front of the financial statements as well, but based on what I've shared with you here tonight in terms of findings, it is a proposed clean audit opinion. So we believe, in our opinion, the financial statements do present fairly in all material respects the financial activities for the year ended December 31, 2024. It is a standard audit report. It does cover 3 pages, but that is that's certainly the current shape and form. Behind there are a number of informational items. I wouldn't propose to go through any of those, and perhaps pause at this stage and welcome any questions from the group if there are any.
Thanks, Laurie. Any questions for Laurie at this point? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Hi, thank you for that. That was really good. You mentioned that you looked at our minutes. Do you also look at the policies and display how up to date we are as well?
Through you, we do, but we have the discretion to choose what we think would be most meaningful, specifically related to financial reporting and our financial audit. So I'm using my words carefully. So as part of an audit actually involves a lot more than just the numbers, believe it or not. A lot of people don't really realize that, but it's really setting the stage to look at the numbers, which is why we have audit plans and risk assessments and review of entity level controls. That's where those types of policies would come into play with a specific focus on financial reporting. So yes, but not everything, I guess, is the short answer to that question.
Anyone else at this point? I guess you've either totally confused people or they're fully enlightened.
Hopefully not. Hopefully it's the latter.
Carry on.
Actually, that takes me to the end. That's all the remarks I wanted to make tonight.
Well, it's very, very thorough, Laurie, as usual. And I guess some people's eyes light up when they see that significant risk being the amount of control or potential for manipulation that exists at a staff level in any organization. And I would suggest that one of the good sort of counterbalancing factors for that risk is to have a good, thorough, independent auditor who's familiar with the operation. And that would be you and your team. So I thank you very much for the service you provide us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to receive that report? Deputy Reeve Davidson, sorry.
It's to receive and adopt.
And adopt the financial report, yes. So Deputy Reeve Davidson and Councillor Milligan, all in favor? Thank you, Carrie. Thanks, Laurie.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our final deputation was to be Bev Tracky with concerns about the Enterprise Solar Project. I don't believe Bev is here. I was informed that she had a personal matter she had to deal with. So we do have her report in writing. It's very thorough and well researched. And I would ask for a motion to receive that, to put that on the record. Is there someone who will make that motion? Councillor Lalande and Councillor Fenwick. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Lalande.
Just a quick question, I guess. Is it possible that we could ask some of those questions that she's put forward when the delegation from Energetic, when they come forward with their presentation?
We can ask them those questions at any time they're available, certainly. Anyone else? I did have a couple of things Bev raises, and as usual, she's done a great deal of research on anything she's interested in. And the main one that she's identifying is the issue of recycling of solar panels. And I've certainly done some reading over the years. I have a couple of solar installations on my own property. I'd say the vast majority of the material in a solar panel is aluminum and glass, and it's fully recyclable. It's difficult to recycle that glass, according to what I've read, just because of coatings that are on it and so forth. It's not impossible. It's simply more expensive than the value of the materials that are being recycled. So it's a net cost to the operation. it doesn't mean it can't be done. If that costs were being factored in to the calculation of what the company is bidding on as part of the price they have to receive for their electricity to cover that recycling, then that would be a more realistic approach to costing the project. You also have to put against the difficulties of recycling, and they are difficulties, they are not impossible barriers, the amount of waste that's generated by other forms of energy production, including zero carbon ones, such as nuclear, for example. Nuclear radioactive waste is the great big elephant in the room. Half of our electricity in Ontario is produced by nuclear, and we still don't have an approved depository for that waste. It's being stored in water in the form of fuel rods just down the road from us right here. Any electricity that's generated by hydro, a good clean energy source, but it also means dams. That backs up and creates reservoirs. It creates stagnant water, not at Niagara, but in dammed rivers. That creates methane emissions because you get decaying vegetation in slow-moving water, or you flood habitat, as in Quebec. There is no clean, 100% clean energy source. Then you get to fossil fuels. In Bev's research here, she points out that 91% of our electricity is generated by non-emitting sources. That is a percentage that's already out of date because now the province is moving to open more gas plants, which they say we have to have as backup power. Now there's over 12% of our electricity being generated burning methane. That's what natural gas is. It's methane. The leaks from methane piping and the leaks from methane production are significant greenhouse gas emissions that lead to climate instability. So while I agree with Bev that ultimately, and we're talking 20 to 25 years down the road, when most of these solar energy contracts expire, we need recycling technology that's effective. There's no question. That is not a reason not to develop solar energy. It's a reason to develop recycling. That's all I have to say on the matter. And if there's nothing else, I'll call a question. All in favor? To receive? Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to items for consideration. 8.1 is Salmon River Sugar Bush Special Event Permit. And the recommendation is that Council receive the report and that Council authorize staff to issue a letter of approval for the special event provided that the applicant completes outstanding permit application requirements. And Clerk Teeple, you were dealing with this. Did you wish to say anything to address this one?
Thank you, Reeve-Wise. Nothing further to add to the report. Staff are in receipt of their proof of insurance, and so there's only one or two outstanding items which we're currently working with them to achieve.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions from Council? Does someone want to move the recommendation? Councillor Land, and I think Deputy Davidson, you had your hand up. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 8.2 is 2026 Council and Committee meeting schedule and office closures. The recommendation is that the report be received and that option 1 within the attached 2026 Council and Committee meeting schedule and office be approved, and that in accordance with the Township's public notice policy, staff be directed to provide notice that Procedure Bylaw 2024-1264 will be amended to change the meeting dates of Council from the first and third Monday of each month to the second and fourth Monday of each month, and 3, that Council approve the closure of the administrative offices from noon on Wednesday, December 24th, 2025 to Thursday, January 1st, 2026. Can I get a motion just to put that on the floor, please? It doesn't mean you're approving that. Councillor Woodcock and Councillor McDonald, thank you. Clerk Teeple, again, this is yours.
Thank you, Reeve-Wise. So just to highlight, this wouldn't come into effect until 2026. So if Council adopted option 1, meetings would continue to happen on the first and third Monday of each month. And if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Questions or comments from Council? Councillor McDonald.
I think it's great. I like option one. I guess the only question would be, I should probably know this, but I don't. Does that affect the county council meetings at all?
No, it wouldn't. They're always on Wednesdays. Yeah, yeah, it's third Wednesday, yeah. Yeah. Well, when you read, you'll know. Councillor Woodcock.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes the dates much more consistent. I don't have an amendment to this, but I do think if we are to make this change, we need a significant communication of this. And I think not just online, because a lot of people aren't online, and especially some of our older residents that have the dates, the first and the third, in their mind. And so I think it would mean that we'd have to like print some posters for our local stores, have a sign on the door, that kind of really visual communication. So when someone shows up here on the first, there's something there that says right away that this change has happened. I think that will be a significant piece if we're to make this change.
Thank you. And Councillor Fenwick.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to, I'm not sure who stumbled across this, but I think it's wonderful. When I read the agenda, it was a bit uplifting for me because I'm thinking, okay, someone's paying attention. Because it's easy for staff who are very, very busy to just simply carry on and kick the can down the road as we have done, instead of saying, hey, there's more efficiency here. And I like efficiency, and the taxpayer likes efficiency. And when I see that this will reduce stress on the staff and also reduce overtime, and it makes sense, I'm just really proud of our staff for discovering this and bringing it forward. So I like the option 2 where we change the schedule I has put forward and go with it. I do have one question though about it, and I'm sure there's a reason why, but have we ever thought about just moving it to Tuesdays and just leaving it at that and not worrying about Mondays at all, or has that ever come forward? I'm just curious.
Go ahead. Brandy.
Thank you, Reeve Wise. I'm not sure if it's come forward in discussions in the past. I haven't seen any material that would indicate that. There may be members of council that have served a few terms that may be able to speak to that. And just in follow-up to Councillor Woodcock, we'll be sure to print off some material and get them into some local stores in the library, possibly up in Tamworth. And then I'll also give full credit to CAO White for identifying the change of dates.
Yeah, as far as the Tuesday option, that is Napan East regular council meeting, I think, is Tuesday night. And municipal junkies may have an awful conflict if they have to try to catch up on both. All 3 of those municipal meeting. But I don't know, Doug, has it always just been Monday back in the old Camden days? And
It's been Monday for a long, long time. Years ago, way before my time, they used to meet on a Saturday at one point in time, but I think we're talking horse and buggy days, to be honest with you. And it took a lot of time then to just travel to the meetings, so to have it. But since 1975 or prior to that, it's been on first and third Monday. So there will be, Councillor Woodcock's right, we do need a significant campaign to education to it, but it's obvious here that it saves some money, and that's good thinking.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it including printed stuff on first and third Monday, maybe we could have something up saying, we've moved, second and fourth Monday, something like that, in case people are used to tuning in. Yep. Any further discussion? We have a mover and seconder. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on, item 8.3 is the 4 Peel Street road closure bylaw, Peel Street in Tamworth, of course. The bylaw being a bylaw to permanently close and convey a portion of an unopened municipal road allowance for Peel Street, that bylaw be enacted and passed, and the Reeve and Clerk be authorized to sign and seal, and further, that the staff be directed to take the necessary steps to formalize the closure. Can I get that motion on the floor, please? Councillor Land, Councillor Milligan, thank you. And Clerk Teeple, this again is in your bailiwick.
Through you, Reeve Wise, nothing further to add. This has come to council twice in the past year. The first round was, I believe, at the beginning of the new year, and council at the time entered into an encroachment agreement due to buildings being in the road allowance that have historically always been there. That property has since sold, and we received a request from the new property owner. That was followed up in a staff report back in June, so this is formalizing the process. Staff provided notification as per our notification policy, and we did not receive any comments about the closure, so just proceeding with the closure.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8.4 is the Independent Energy System Operator Request for Proposal Long-Term 2 Municipal Support Resolutions for Energy Projects. And the recommendation is that Council approve a municipal resolution in support of proposal submission for the Interjex Energy Project proposed within Stone Mills Township under the IESO LT2 RFP process, subject to the project meeting township criteria. And I'm going to read these because this is an important decision. And that Council directs staff to work with the proponent on standard municipal approvals, expectations for ongoing community engagement and feedback gathering, and additional project-specific agreements, including Community Vibrancy Fund agreements and any specific cost recovery arrangements, and that future energy project proposals should be similarly brought to Council for individual consideration and approval, and that the below municipal resolution in support of proposal submission be approved, and that municipal resolution in support of proposal submission reads, whereas the proponent is proposing to construct and operate a long-term energy project located on municipal project lands as defined and with the characteristics outlined in the table below under the Long-Term 2 Energy Supply Window 1 request for proposals issued by the IESO. Capitalized items not defined herein have the meanings ascribed to them, etc. The proponent has no later than 60 days prior to the proposal submission deadline delivered a pre-engagement confirmation notice to an applicable local body administrator, that would be our CAO, in respect of the municipal project lands that includes the details outlined in the table below, except for the unique project ID, which should only be required as part of the pre-engagement confirmation notice if available. Then it lists the various prerequisites. And pursuant to the LT2 RFP, if the long-term energy project is proposed to be located in whole or in part on municipal project lands, the proposal must include municipal support confirmation, which may be in the form of a municipal resolution in support of the project submission. And that reads as follows: the Council of the Township of Stone Mills supports the submission of a proposal for the long-term energy project located on municipal project lands. This resolution's sole purpose is to satisfy the mandatory requirements of Section 4, etc., and may not be used for the purpose of any other form of approval in relation to the proposal or long-term energy project, or for any other purpose. The proponent has undertaken or is committed to undertake Indigenous and community engagement activities in respect to the long-term energy project to the satisfaction of the municipality. The municipal project lands does not include lands designated as prime agricultural areas in the township's official plan. So that is fairly exhaustive, but I think necessary, both for legal and purposes of public education. And my computer has just decided to switch back to my agenda notes. So I will turn it over to our CAO to elaborate if necessary. Sorry, Sherry. Okay, I've been kicked out too. Okay. It won't come up. Okay. All right. Jason, while we're fiddling with our computers, do you want to elaborate?
Is that the attachment that you're trying to click on?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, it's there too. Yeah. So if you go to visit stonemills.civicweb.net, you should be able to pull up the agenda and review it. Thank you, Reeve-Wise, and through you. This is a pretty lengthy report in an effort of being thorough and full explanation as to what this particular support means. Really, This is a much larger process, and the IESO is looking to expand both capacity and generation within Ontario through what they would call a procurement process, where proponents are able to submit for proposed projects at this point. Interjects being one of the companies that is looking to develop a solar project. They're doing so, as I understand it, through the energy stream. There is two streams being proposed through the procurement process at the IESO. There's an energy stream and a capacity stream. Capacity would typically be the storage of energy for peak shaving, what they would call, where during low times, that energy is stored and then released during peak times to reduce the demand on generation side of the schedule or the grid. This particular project is only a generation and solar, so we're not talking battery energy storage or some other form of storage of energy with this project. There was an option through the IESO's process to do a blanket approval so that anybody in the municipality could use that as a attachment to their RFP process, as indicating that the township would have general amiability or acceptance of any energy project proposed, but it seemed prudent to just deal with any projects that we've been made aware of and who are requesting municipal support. Additionally, at this time, municipal support, as stated, is a point-in-time indication of support and is not the full and final approval of all the projects. At this time, the window for submitting proposed projects is coming up for this round. And then the IESO will review proposed projects and potentially award to a number of submitters. And each of those companies that are submitting to the IESO would be scored, and then having municipal support is part of that scoring rubric. So without it, it could be submitted, but it would count against a project potentially. So this is again to allow for the proponent to submit for a project. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get the project at this time, even with our support, because they are competing with anybody who submits in Ontario on proposed projects. As I understand it, there are a number of different things that contribute to where a project could potentially be. And one of the ones that that is driving the location, as I understand it, for this project is the availability of transmission lines to receive that energy. And it's not just simply good enough that the transmission lines exist, but they also have to have capacity to be able to add power to them. If they were at full capacity, you wouldn't want to be adding additional energy to those. So as I understand it, there is transmission lines that are north of Enterprise that are potentially got the capacity. So it's possible that other proponents are also applying in other municipalities along those transmission lines, and that the IESO would have to evaluate all the options and then select which ones without potentially over subscribing, I guess, that transmission line. Which, again, until everybody gets their proposals in and those awards happen, that is not something you can crystal ball. So the long and short of it is that as was presented by Interjex, they have done some groundwork and the preliminary work of identifying lands, starting those public meetings, and getting involved in the consultation process and the, what's the other term, sorry? The, I have to go back to the pre-engagement process. But this is a multi-year potentially project, and this is kind of at the leading edge of that cycle. And again, I do want to stress that approval or support in principle through this resolution is a prescribed step laid out by the ISO. The wording comes from the ISO, and the structure is part of that procurement process. But there is still potentially a lot of work to be done should they be successful in the awarding of the project. There is some details that would need to be negotiated, which is part of the motion today, around the allowing staff to have a conversation around what potentially a community vibrancy agreement would look like, and starting those conversations. I'd be happy to take any questions through you. Thank you.
Any questions at this point or comments? Councillor Lalonde.
So, CAO White, I'm just wondering, is it would it be preliminary then today, like right now, for me to raise some issues that I'd like to see considered, I guess? Well, I think we all would. With the agreement that we ultimately, if we do decide to support this, would be contained in the agreement?
It wouldn't, through you, Reeve-Wise, it wouldn't be, there would be nothing set in stone, but it wouldn't be a terrible idea to be on the record about some of your feedback at this point.
Okay, can I do that then?
Ask me.
Sorry.
And I would say, of course, feel free, but getting into the weeds too much at this point is a bit of a waste of time, because if the ISO, despite our, what is basically support in principle, doesn't award this contract, then everything else is irrelevant. So at some, really discussing in any detail all the things that I'm sure we all want in some kind of agreement would come after the IESO actually awards a contract to Energex.
Okay, so just hold on.
Well, it's really up to you, Wenda. I mean, there's people here that are probably interested. If you want to sort of do a high-level version of it, feel free.
Okay, short version then.
Some
So
comment?
just, it would be good to hear the short version, I guess, if possible.
I'll do my best.
Because they may want to incorporate some of your feedback in their proposal to the IESO as well.
Okay. Okay, just wondering, of the plan to restore the land to former natural conditions post-solar, that would be one question I would have, based on Beverly Trackey's letter. Will there be any detrimental effect to the soil? Will the water table be adversely affected on the surrounding lands? I think that's really important. Are there plans to monitor for degradation on a regular basis? So I know we monitor our solar panels for issues, and I think she's just wondering if they're going to be monitoring that to see if anything's degrading that needs to be fixed. The big one is the disposal of the panels. She'd mentioned about that some of them can be taken back and recycled, but others, companies have just put them in landfill, which I don't think we would want to see, even though it's way, way, way less expensive. So just what are their plans for disposing of the panels in 25 years? I realize I won't be around then, but I'd really like to know what they plan to do. Fire threat, I think we can pass on that one because we've already dealt with Blue Earth, and that was pretty well explored when we did that project. I think that's it. Tracy has also submitted some things, but I won't review that because that's on the record from her, Tracy Asselstein, that's on the record from her presentation, so I would just be repeating something we already have on record. So those are the big ones that I like to
Thanks,
put
all
out
good
there.
points. Councillor Woodcock.
Yeah, just to add, since Wenda brought this up, possibly if many trees will be lost, then maintaining hedgerows for biodiversity, I think would be beneficial. Also, a potential issue here is that, yes, it says it's not on any prime ag land based on our official plan, but we know our official plan isn't necessarily accurate when it comes to prime ag designation, and we're undertaking a LEAR study, and I can't remember the other one. There could be a potential that when that is completed, that we find out that there's prime ag land there, just as a, I don't know what that land looks like. You might know better than I. I think we've said it's more like alvar and rock, so we're
It's
probably.
prime granite.
Okay, well then, there we go, no problem.
Anyone else? Yes, Randy.
Reeve-wise, just procedurally, minutes are typically without note or comment, so we wouldn't be recording kind of wish list of commentary and questions. So if council wanted to do a follow-up motion after they consider the one that's, I don't have a mover and seconder yet, but if they wanted to do a follow-up motion and direct staff to bring those questions back to interjects, that may be the best way to do that.
I
Just
guess
a
I didn't get a mover
suggestion.
and seconder, so
Not
when I
yet.
ask for one, I can ask them to include comments from council as well.
I would do a secondary.
Yeah, because it's a fairly complex motion. Okay, I will do that. Anyone else at this point? Okay, we do have a motion. We don't have a motion on the floor. Can I get initially a mover and seconder for all that rigmarole I read at the first, Councillor Fenwick and Councillor McDonald? Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor? That's carried. Did Wenda and Christopher, do you want to make a motion to incorporate your concerns on the record, or however you want it worded, Brandy? What wording would you prefer?
Through you, Reeve-wise, so if we can get a mover to put on the floor, and if Councillor Lalonde just wants to do a high-level overview of her commentary, and then Councillor Woodcock can provide her comment, and then if we can get a seconder for that as well.
Okay. Wenda, do you want to go ahead with a motion then?
I'd like to make a motion that the high-level overview of some of the points that were brought forward would be sent to staff for consideration.
And you could submit those in writing then for Brandy, would that?
So yeah, if the motion can be that the comments and questions provided by yourself and Councillor Woodcock be forwarded to staff.
Perfect, yes.
To provide to interject staff for follow-up, and staff report back to council with their answers, or we can just, do you want staff to report back on that, or do you want it brought up from interjects the next time they come, just so staff have clear direction?
Yeah, that's a good question.
May I?
Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you. I might suggest that you don't have to come back with a report. That sounds like more work, but maybe just to convey that, because as John said, like, we don't even know if this will be awarded yet. And as our CEO mentioned, like, maybe this would have an impact on how they approach that application, but whether or not it's approved or not, I don't think we need to put too much effort into it unless it's approved.
Just get it to them now for the time being, yeah. Does that clarify that?
Through you, Reeve-wise, so I have moved by Councillor Lalonde that the items discussed by Councillor Lalonde and Councillor Woodcock be forwarded to interject staff for their information.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Woodcock, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.5 in matters for consideration, and it's the final item on our matters for consideration, is use of external planning resources. The recommendation is that council receive the report and the council authorize the use of the planning reserve account to fund any year-end deficit resulting from external planning consultant services required to maintain service delivery. Can I get that on the floor, please, with a motion? Deputy Reeve Davison and Councillor Milligan, thank you. And Mr. White, this is yours.
Through you, Revise, the report pretty much covers all the bases. What we are experiencing is that I guess, consulting work is definitely more expensive than internal resources. Part of the challenge is that we are using more hours than we had originally anticipated in order to move files forward. And we do have some feedback on what our planning consultant has been working on and where some of the additional time has been spent. We are working to come up with a long-term solution for our planning needs. But as it stands right now, we are still utilizing the services of Arcadis until we are able to find, again, a more appropriate long-term solution for planning support. I'd be happy to answer any questions from council about this.
Questions or comments from council? So, Doug, did you have something? No?
I was just gonna say, when you have somebody traveling from Toronto, the cost is gonna be high. You know,
Certainly one factor. I think the main factor, though, is just the incredible backlog and complexity of some of these files and the unfamiliarity of the consultant with them. And they're trying to be thorough. And so they're going over these with a fine-tooth comb. So it's a strain, and it's put us a bit over budget. This is what reserve funds are for. You have unexpected costs on something that you have to do. This is a public service we provide. It's development services, and we have to pay the piper at this point. Any comments on this? Anyone concerned or have any alternatives? Councillor Lalande?
Is it possible to consider looking at more local external consultants? I understand Mark, is his name Taus? Sorry, how do is available, and he's regional, and he knows our township, and he knows our issues somewhat, I would say, because he's been to council numerous times giving reports. Would it be worthwhile exploring what that would look like cost-wise until we get somebody suitable?
Yep. We are, again, one of the processes that we're working on behind the scenes right now is that just over a week ago, an RFP for planning services did close. And we're evaluating submissions to that right now to determine whether there is some opportunities to transition to a more attuned planning support. In order to make that process or that attract firms to submit to that, we are in the RFP did offer a multi-year agreement in order to provide some stability to those who are looking for services from the township, because we've had a lot of changeover and upheaval, so we would like to have a period of stability from a planning support point of view. And then also from a proponent who's going to propose to provide services to the township, they would know that there would be a long-term arrangement with those firms. So we have some submissions in hand right now that are being reviewed and will be followed up with to determine what the long-term solution is. I don't know if that answers your question directly, but I'm just not sure we can get into awarding specific contracted services to specific individuals through discussion at council at this time.
Yeah, we've got an RFP, so we can't pick a winner at this point. Got to go over the submissions we have, the application. Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Which brings us to our consent agenda. Number of items in the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull out first? Councillor Lalande?
I'd like to pull out 9.5, the firefighter certification.
Okay.
From I can't think of the
Town
township.
of Cobalt.
Cobalt, yes, thank you.
Anyone else want to pull anything out? Councillor Fenwick.
You beat me to that one, Wenda. But I'd also like to look at 9.7.
9.7 is Township of Perry Council Resolution regarding support for advocacy for increased income support threshold for Canadian veterans. Anyone else? In that case, can I have a mover and seconder to approve the balance of the consent agenda without those items included? Councillor Woodcock, Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That's carried. Councillor Land, did you want to go ahead to speak to the 9.5 Town of Cobalt resolution?
Yes, so the town of Cobalt has suggested that they would like to, they're writing the government, that they would like to consider not making this a mandatory requirement because they were having issues with recruitment and retention. And so I was wondering if we could get a snapshot from our representative of the firefighters who's here today, Mr. Thompson, to see if he could speak to the health and wellness, I guess, of Stone Mills and what his thoughts are on this thought.
So you're putting Jeff on the spot on this one? He may not be familiar with, okay. Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead. Jeff, did you have a comment on this one?
Thank you. Through you, Reeve Wise. Yeah, it's a lot of municipalities are struggling with the recruitment, retention, the new legislation of training. I think we started probably 10 years ago with KFL&A, 8 to 10 years ago, and we teamed together before this legislation came through, and we started our own recruit program, which they would go through the testing and come out with firefighter 1, firefighter 2. A lot of our senior officers and senior members, there was a grandfathering process, so they were able to grandfather a lot of the senior ones in before that. And as far as our retention, we have great results every time we put a posting out. We go through maybe anywhere from 7 to 10 a year with people either moving from the area or retiring. Right now it's a solid program. It's all done in-house. The last 2 years have been done, maybe 3 years, have been done just Stone Mills themselves. Yeah, we have a great program.
Thanks, Jeff. Did you have anything further on that one then, Wenda?
No, thank you.
Okay. So your motion was just to discuss that or okay, so it's just a discussion item. Okay, and nine. Okay, so can I have a motion to receive that then? Councillor Fenwick and Councillor Milligan, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. And Doug, you wanted to speak to the, no? Oh, sorry, it was Ron. Gee, it's my first screw up of the night. Go ahead, Rob.
No worries, John. Yeah, I found this quite interesting. I wasn't aware of this. To those that are listening or to those in the crowd that aren't aware, this is a request from the Township of Perry in regards to an issue they've discovered, and it's very interesting that there's a financial assistance program that's available to veterans, Canadian veterans, but there's a threshold when you qualify. So what I'm reading here is that for a single person household, if you make more than $20,000 a year, which doesn't get you far in 2025, you don't qualify. And so they're asking for it to be raised to $40,000, which means that if you made 25, 30, right up to $39,999, you would then be able to possibly access these funds. And they make a really good point, and I feel terrible that this has been like this for so long. So I was hoping that we would lend our support to this. They bring up a very good point, and I would like to see more veterans qualify for this program. And veterans are near and dear to my heart, as they are to many, and I think that the very least we can do is lend our support to this town who's brought up this point.
Your motion would be to receive and to support this motion from the Township of Perry?
That is correct.
Can I get a seconder for that? Deputy Davison, any discussion? All in favor? It's carried, thank you. Okay, that brings us to 11, notice of motion or direct motion. Councillor Fenwick provided the following notice of motion on our previous council meeting. Was it the CAO requests planning consultants from Arcadis to prepare a report for council detailing the advantages and disadvantages of reducing our current land severance from 1 hectare to 1 acre. So, Councillor Fenwick, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, I would. In regards to this, there's been some discussion and there's been a lot of concern about our impact of development on agricultural lands, and I'm certainly on side with that. We're working our way through it, trying to find out a balance. One of the things that we had discussed, and it had been brought up actually by Reeve Wise at one point, and it brought it into my mind, that we currently have a minimum severance of 1 hectare, which is roughly 2.5 acres. And you can't, we do have a minor acceptance to that, and Brandy shared that with me. But I just found it odd that we literally force people to take that much land, whether they wish to or not, in most instances. So I thought if we were to explore the idea, as much as I hate spending money on planning, this is an important subject. And going back to what we did have in the past was a minimum of 1 acre. You can take as much as you like, depending, but why not give flexibility to the taxpayer? And I'll use the example of a farmer who maybe wants to just take 1 acre off of the kids, is now forced to take potentially 2.5 acres off, whether they use it or not. And if that place gets sold, then it's never part of the farm again. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense, but there's always reasons why things are in place. And I like to be the one who listens and hears and hopefully makes a decision based on knowledge and not just assumption. So I would like to make this motion that we just ask our planning people to bring forward a report as to what the pros and cons of this are. And if we find that it makes sense, and maybe we can move forward with something. If it doesn't, we can leave it as is. But knowledge is power. So I'm making this motion for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor Fenwick. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Milligan. Okay, any discussion? Well, yes. Deputy Reeve Davison, go ahead.
Yeah, Rob and I had a short discussion at the start of the meeting, and I remembered when this did change from 1 acre to 1 hectare, and one of the prime reasons at that time was for septic purposes. On 1 acre, sometimes there wasn't enough room, or enough prime spots to put the old-fashioned septic tanks in it. But I'm supportive of Rob's motion to see what else could be brought forward of it.
Councillor Woodcock?
Yeah, I'm in support, and I think when you, as Rob mentioned, when you brought it up before, Reeve-wise, you'd said just that there's now been technological changes, that it may no longer be the same necessity that the planning decision was made in the past, so I think let's find out.
Anyone else? So, yes, Councillor Milligan.
Just a quick thing, since I don't think this is urgent, can it wait until we sort out our planning company?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Brandy.
Through you, Reeve-wise, as the wording is on record here, there's no indication of date. So if you wanted to tie a date to it, I would suggest that it's included in the motion.
When it comes to tying a date, because the RFP applications are still fresh, and we probably wouldn't have a date as to selection at this point. I'm more than happy. I think that's a fantastic idea, Councillor Milligan. And I love these aha moments. That makes total sense. There's a potential here for whoever is successful in this RFP to have a more intimate knowledge of our geographical region, and therefore have more information as to why this is a good or not good idea. So I'm more than happy to put this on hold for a period of time. I'm not sure how that works, Brandy, because I can't really staple a date to it because we really don't know who's successful at this point. What do you suggest?
Through you, Reeve-wise, like you could withdraw your motion for now, and then when someone is awarded a contract or hired, you can bring it forward, or you can kick it into the new year, into the spring. That's entirely up to you, though.
Could we edit the motion just to add that as soon as the RFP is awarded, or I guess it would be considered a contract, that at that point it goes forward? Would they be that simple? That way we don't have to revisit it. It's just kind of somewhat automated.
You can make your motion anything you want. I know you're trying to be accommodating. I'd suggest that with the backlog, not only of work, but of people, and I'm getting calls saying, what's happening with my application? It was supposed to be heard at the Committee of Adjustment in August, and then September, and now it's not going to be heard. We've got a lot of people out there who are champing at the bit. So to task a consultant with another investigative report, which if it's going to be meaningful, it's going to take a fair amount of time, will mean putting some of those things to the side. So I would suggest, from my point of view, you're not going to forget about this. Why not wait and see who we get in terms of a consultant, let them deal with the backlog, and keep in touch with them through Jason. And then when it looks like the coast is a bit clear, the smoke is clearing, bring it back, because it looks like you've got support. Does that seem reasonable?
That's fantastic. This is what I love about this council. John, and I'm not even thinking about this, we are approaching the end of the construction season. So when it comes to severances and so on, yes, we get some over the winter and we get some in the fall, but really the urgency is diminished at this point of the year. So yes, I'm more than happy to do that. And thank you for bringing your wisdom forward. I like it. So yes, we will just put a pause on that. I'll withdraw my motion and we'll revisit it at a later date when it makes a little more sense.
Okay, thanks, Rob. And you still get to make another motion.
Oh, yes, I do.
Because under 11.2...
Do I have to read it again, Brandon?
you provide... Well, I'll do that.
Okay.
You provide another notice of motion, and it's concerning the emerald ash borer and the amount of dead trees we've got, which are going to become a hazard. And the motion is that whereas the emerald ash borer infestation has resulted in a substantial increase in dead ash trees, resulting in extensive ecological, economic, and public safety challenges, and whereas those trees contribute to potential hazards, fallen limbs, power lines, and et cetera, and removing and replacing them is costly. Be it resolved, therefore, that the township formally request the province and the federal government to establish dedicated funds to assist municipal governments, private organizations, and private property owners in effectively managing the removal and replanting of trees, thereby addressing the aftermath of the emerald ash borer infestation. I got to say that very clearly. And further resolve that the funding support should encompass grants for municipalities to fund community-wide removal and replanting initiatives, financial assistance for private organizations engaged in environmentally restorative work, subsidies for individual property owners to safely remove and replace the ash trees, and further resolve that this request be forwarded to the relevant provincial and federal ministries and agencies involved in environmental management, forestry, and public safety, and finally, that a supporting letter be drafted and disseminated to other municipalities across Ontario to encourage regional advocacy and collaboration in addressing this ecological challenge.
Sorry, just going back to the motion for planning services, because there was a seconder, if we can just get consensus, because there was a motion on the floor.
Oh, okay.
Just to get consensus that it's withdrawn.
Okay. Just a formality, do we have consensus that the previous motion be withdrawn from both the mover and seconder? We do. We don't need a vote on that. Okay, that's fine. So Rob, you are making that motion. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Woodcock. Rob, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, very simple. Just in layman's terms, I know I may have done this last meeting, but for the sake of those that didn't attend or hear it, basically, and we've all seen the dead ash trees. They're everywhere. A lot of them are municipal property, a lot of them on private property, and it isn't cheap to dispose of them. They're going to take hydro lines, they're going to be on the roads. And it's, as I see it, as a slow-moving natural disaster. And we could not possibly have budgeted for that. And it's just something that comes along. No different than any other natural disaster. This is just slow-moving, and I'm just afraid that it might get missed by the province. And so I want to rally the troops through a letter to other municipalities asking for their support in this and getting it uphill to the province. Asking for assistance financially, not only for the township, because we're looking at 500, 600, $1 million, hundreds of thousands of dollars to dispose of these trees over time, which is a significant hit on the taxpayer that we could not have planned for, but also on private party who have to dispose of their own. So I think it makes sense right now, while we have a bit of time left before they're on the roads and everywhere else and on the houses, that we put this forward and bring it to the attention of the province with the backing of other municipalities. So yes, I definitely want to make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Fenwick. Any comment or question? I just, I support your motion. I just wonder, Jeff, we've referred to this a couple of times in previous meetings, and you've mentioned that obviously you've got to plan for this. Where does it stand from your standpoint and maybe what you know of the county in terms of planning and in terms of making note of trees that you think are going to be hazards? Where are you at with this issue?
Through you, Reeve-wise, we have not completed any inventory because once you identify as inventory, you have so many months to have that tree removed. And I know we've talked about this previously, and a lot of the ones that we have that are going to be problems are on the county road system, just because of our narrow right-of-ways of our own. But we are working, we've increased the budget for tree removal itself, and I see hydros in the area again, cutting trees. So we're limited to 5 to 10 meters away from power lines to actually cut the trees. So we work with hydro and clean up the brush and stuff like that while they work around the lines. But as far as an inventory, we don't have an active inventory. And some of the ash are still alive, believe it or not. I mean, looking across the landscape, there's a lot in the farmers' fields and fence rows that are dead. But yeah, so I don't know that I answered your question, but
Well, it tells me that you have some limitations on what you can do.
Exactly.
And what you're legally required to if you start identifying trees. That's significant. So until we get funding, you're not going to want to inventory too many trees. But obviously, the clock is ticking. And all it's going to take is another significant ice storm or windstorm, and we've got limbs or trees on the road or on power lines. But it's interesting what you said. I didn't know, because there are obviously power lines in almost every situation in terms of our rights of way. So just explain to me more clearly, what's the 5 to 10 meter thing about?
so if the tree's within 10 meters of the power line, the hydro has to cut it.
They have to deal with it. So if
They
the
have to
tree's
deal with it.
basically on the same side of the road as the power line, it's going to be up to them.
That's right.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Thanks, Jeff. Any other discussion at this point? All in favor then of the motion? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Okay. We didn't have a direct motion, or did we?
Just ask council members, there is one.
Yeah. Is there any direct motion this evening? Councillor Milligan, you have a direct motion.
I have a direct motion to reconsider Resolution 12-691-2025, whereas Council received staff report SR-0170 Ratty Road at their June 16th, 2025 Council meeting, and by Resolution 12-691-2025 directed staff to proceed with option 3 as outlined in the report, which was closing Ratty Road at the Mud Creek crossing. Whereas public notice to close the road was provided for on August 15th, 2025, and the bylaw to close the road was to be considered at the meeting of September 15th, 2025. Whereas staff informed council and the public on September 10th, 2025 that the bylaw to close Ratty Road would not be on the September 15th, 2025 council agenda for consideration due to issues with the legal description, and that a survey of the portion to be closed would be required. Whereas the initial quote to close the road provided was $25,000, and it is not known what, if any, additional costs there will be with the addition of a survey. Whereas members of the public have noted concerns regarding the closure of Ratty Road, now therefore be it resolved that staff not proceed with option 3, which is the closure of Ratty Road at this time, and that council direct staff to report back by the end of October with a full financial analysis and breakdown of the cost associated with selecting option 1 and option 3 within staff report SR-0170. Can I explain a bit?
Just a procedural question for Clerk Teeple. You wanted, first of all, to get council to entertain
Motion to reconsider.
the motion to reconsider.
So through you, Reeve Wise, council will need to pass a motion with majority of council members in support to reconsider that resolution. You'll need a mover and seconder. Councillor Milligan, you can be the mover.
So this is just the initial, will we reconsider this previous council decision? So you're moving that, Sherry. And there's a second for that, it's Councillor Land. Does anyone wish to speak to that? Okay, all in favor then? Okay, that's carried. All right, and then you have made your motion. Is there a seconder for Sherry's direct motion then? Councillor Fenwick, you have a question? Go ahead.
A quick one, yeah, in regards to that. Yes, I second it, but also I think it's great that when new information comes across, we take a moment of pause and think it through. I think we owe that to the ratepayer, and I think this is great. Thank you very much, Sherry, and I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'm in favor of the reconsideration. But when you say a full financial analysis, we were already given some figures. What further detail are you looking for there?
Asking me. So when we made the motion before, it was, I understand, 25,000 to close the road. I think it was 50 something to sort of fix it. That's possible, possibly temporary or whatever, however long it would last, we don't know. And then there was a huge amount to make it great. So I was under the impression at that time before that people didn't really mind if it was closed, and so although my gut told me that seemed too simple, here we are. And just last week, I was made aware that there are many people very concerned about the closure of the road, and I visited said road, and it's actually, other than where it washed out, it's a beautiful road. Blue Earth spent, I guess, around $90,000 filling in the road, and it's, yeah, it's a great road, other than where it washed out. So now that I see that it also needs a survey added to close it, I wonder how much closer we are to it not being such a big deal to leave it open and having a lot of people be happier. That's the purpose of my motion tonight.
Okay, so it's basically take a step back and have another analysis of
Exactly,
it, take a
yeah.
thorough look, and that doesn't hurt. Any further discussion? Councillor Lalonde.
Yes, just in support of what Sherry's saying, I think at the last meeting when we made this decision, there was no real conversation about the root cause and why had it washed out, other than, tremendous waterfall and whatever. But I understand now that there's possibly an understanding by the local people that it just got jammed with some debris, and that had the debris been cleared, which we saw a few years ago at Second Depot Lake, when there was a log jam that took the road out, so that if there had been, a possibility at that time to remove the debris, that perhaps things would have worked just fine. And we don't really know that. We have no way of knowing that. So I guess I would say a more in-depth report would be a good idea. And if that clearly is the only problem, then restoring the road to where it was before may be the answer to the solution, but we don't know that right now.
Thank you, Councillor Land. Any further comment or discussion? I would welcome further discussion. Obviously, it's not super time sensitive, although spring is coming eventually. I would also point out, and I think we all know this, that we have a number of assets that serve a relatively small number of people that are very, very expensive to maintain in the long term. And that doesn't mean they shouldn't be maintained. It's just we have to keep this in mind. I always talk about the bridge on Teskey Road. It'll cost God knows what, $300,000, $350,000 to restore that bridge, which adds maybe 2 minutes of travel time. This one's different, it's longer, I know that. We're gonna have to make some hard decisions about these kind of assets. We just had a big auditor's report, and it shows that our long-term asset management is okay for now, but there's a huge $6 billion Eastern Ontario asset deficit that is all made up of little decisions like this. So just keep that in mind in the context when we do come to the discussion. I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Councillor Woodcock, go ahead.
Yeah, just on that note, this is more and more why, and we've passed a motion here and sent it on to the provincial government, that we need a new deal for municipalities. Even just looking at, we're seeing more and more people having difficulty paying their property taxes. We often are told that we're getting taxes cut, and yet property taxes keep going up, and that's largely because we're now paying municipalities in Ontario spending $4 billion more than the province on the provincial responsibilities, right? We've now investing in healthcare, we're investing in affordable housing. These are not our responsibilities, and yet they're put on our back because we're not getting the proper funding and investment in our communities. And so we need a new deal for municipalities, and then we won't have to always be counting our pennies in these kinds of situations, but we do have a lot of roads, and it's true, there's going to be hard decisions to make at some point. But
It's been going on since 1995, I think. Who was in power then? Sorry. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. Number 12, announcements. Anyone have anything they wish to announce or make comment on in the community? Nothing tonight. We have no closed meeting. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I'm just, oh wait, I don't want to. Just going to note that on Saturday, my grandfather passed away, Earl Woodcock, and I only mention that if anybody used to camp at Vardy Lake, him and my grandmother, Grace, used to take care of that campground a lot when I was a kid, and we spent a lot of time there, and I know a lot of other people did too, so just saying that.
Thanks. Sorry for your loss, Crystal Lee. I just need a mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw for the proceedings this evening. Councillor Milligan and Councillor Lalande, all in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn from Councillor Woodcock and Councillor Fenwick, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.